First off, thank you again, everybody, for an amazing weekend, and thank you for. I'm very grateful and humbled to just be able to speak to you today, and particularly with on the stage with Daniel here, who is a intellectual powerhouse, and so I'm going to talk to you about conscious entrepreneurship. I'm going to talk to you about the state of that in the world today. I'm also going to share with you a project that I've been working on for a few years and how that fits in, and a little bit about my personal journey with it, as well as touching more back again on the sense of purpose and how that might relate to each and every one of you, so you perhaps have something to take away from the talk as well. So my background is I was sort of born an entrepreneur. I was one of those people that just could never be happy working for somebody else. I really always had to do my own thing. And the last time I had a regular job was in the banking world in 2001, and I left that to go on my own to be a real estate developer full time. And I've worked primarily in New York as well as in Panama. I own a hospitality company in Panama as well, really in the restaurant and bar and nightclub business. I have about 140 employees down there, and also have dabbled in investing in startups. But most of the work I've done has been in the realm of real estate development. And I got into that really because I was focused. I wanted to make money, and I grew up really with a deep sense of insecurity, and I really was looking for wealth as a means of satisfying that. And on a really deep level, I never admitted this to anyone, but I actually felt like I needed to make a lot of money to attract a worthy partner in my life, and that served as a great motivator and led to some real early success for me. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I had started with no money at all, but I had created a sizable net worth for myself. And then the kind of real work began, because I realized, okay, I have as much money as I need, and I wasn't happy. In fact, and I didn't have anything that I was aiming for. I lost my sense of purpose, because I said, well, what's more money going to do? It's not going to make me happier. And I actually kind of got depressed. And so that's when I started, slowly reevaluating my life and where my sort of spiritual path began. And not coincidentally, in the past decade, as I feel I've become more spiritually alive, my business has been stagnant because that motivator, that sense of purpose that I had, has gradually disappeared. So I decided, years ago, I didn't want to just be another real estate developer focused on building wealth. That wasn't working for me. And for several years, I've been working on a project to reinvent the way people live for the betterment of humanity. And it's called Shift Living. And the premise of it is the way that we are living today, in my mind, does not make a lot of sense. As a country here, we are the wealthiest we've ever been, yet today we have the highest incidence of depression, loneliness, isolation, suicide, obesity, and drug addiction. So something is not working. And the world has changed really dramatically in the last few decades, yet the way we live has not. And in fact, we become more and more isolated. And it's, as we sit here today, as a society, we are more isolated than we've ever been in the history of man. Man grew throughout all time in tribal society, in community, in tribes, supporting one another. And the last few decades, we've continued to get more and more alone. And I believe we're suffering as a result of that. So I've set out to create a better way to live, which I believe is better for the people who live in these environments, as well as all the people that they touch that surround them. It is both a rental model and a ownership model made for urban areas. And it's basically people live in their own apartments, but they also have shared resources and shared spaces that they share together. And so all the communal elements are optional. And it's about sharing things, but it's also about attracting a type of person that wants to live in community. And there are more and more of us that want to do that today. So it's been a real journey, and I started with a pilot project that I've been working on now for 2 years, and have been it's been a challenge to get it financed. And it's been a real interesting process to finance a conscious vision or idea using a capital market system that is completely unconscious. So this is a sizable project. It's about $210 million. And my prior projects were, most of them are between 5 and 10 million, the biggest being about 20. So it's a huge jump for me, and that also means working with different sources of capital. These are sort of the, Goldman Sachs's of the world. And I really set out and I said, well, I know, the capital markets is really focused on making money, but I was sort of hopeful that there's a few individuals out there that they care about other things, that they actually have a higher purpose. And in the year that I've been raising capital, I haven't found it. And it's been both disappointing and invigorating in a way. It's also been a personal journey for me that this is the biggest project I've worked on, and to be prepared and accept the idea that it may not happen, and to really focus on my internal self, and not having previously valued myself based on my own success. This has been my journey to learn how to value myself by how I feel inside, independent of the circumstances. And it's also inspired me to work out a different model. And it's a model that doesn't utilize the capital markets, which is an ownership model whereby people who want to own an urban condo project in an urban condo unit in a community setting will basically finance the project early on and co-create with me as developer a co-housing model. And it really feels great to be able to kind of have a plan for that gives a little bit of a fuck you to the capital markets that just don't care about this.
Oh.
So, the conscious capital landscape, you're hearing more talk about conscious capitalism. John McKay of Whole Foods wrote a book about it, and I'm seeing it firsthand, and it's very strange that I actually feel kind of alone, and it's disappointing in a way. And through the course of this project, I've also met with some of the biggest development companies in New York as potential partners. And these are men, all men by the way, who are worth hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars. And I look at them, and they're wildly successful from a financial standpoint. But I'm finding that it's not a model for who I want to be. And it's not, and in a way, I don't have any examples in the world of real estate development of people that are actually looking to do something positive for the world, that actually care about things besides just making money. So, and it's sort of a shame in a way that, the Venn diagrams of spirit and big business, they're just not intersecting. And the people that I've been meeting with, I've noticed none of them are here this weekend. And it feels kind of alone. And I also realize that as I've, looking for a different purpose as opposed to just building buildings and being in the commodity real estate business, that I have more trouble being around that world, and I'm sort of drawing away from it. And it made me realize that that's what happens. And the concentration of both wealth and of power ends up in the hands of people, generally speaking, that really are unconscious and don't have a higher purpose beyond binding their own wealth and taking as much of it for themselves. And maybe they wake up later on in life and they end up giving it all away, which is wonderful, by the way. But in the course of conscious capitalism, what I'm seeing is, particularly the millennial generation holds out hope for me, because there's a sense of other things that are important to them. The problem is, they're young and they are not overall the people who are generally controlling power, economic and political power in this country. And for me, it's been sort of witnessing this at the same time of going through my personal journey with it and my own transformation. And what I've really tried to do in my personal, deeper self is redefine the idea of success. And my whole life I thought about success as measured by economic wealth. And now I realize that's not how I want to measure success. That's not how what I believe is successful. And all you men here, I believe, are far more successful than the people that I've been meeting with at the top 0.1% of the economic ladder. So, and at the same time, through Shift Living, I've been doing a deep study on what makes people happy. And what I've found out is that, money makes people happy to an extent, because if you don't have your basic needs met, you're actually, statistically speaking, you're going to be less happy. But once you have those basic needs met, having more money doesn't actually make people more happy. In fact, having more money generally corresponds to working longer hours, spending less time with your family, spending less time on passions, things that you want to do, having more stress in your life. So there's actually a correlation that more money is making people less happy. So I've been experiencing that, and I'm seeing that in the capital markets, and I'm also putting that all into this new living model to try to put forth a place where people can start questioning their priorities and their motivations. Just the way, many people go to Burning Man the first time and they come back and they're like, I'm quitting my job. Fuck that. I'm, no longer working for the man. I've seen something else that's important to me. And a lot of us here, I think, have found that in community as well. And community, whether it's Growing Heart Farm or Pink or other communities we're in, I think has caused some people to reevaluate their priorities. And my goal in providing a place for people to live that is built upon shared supporting bonds will also get people to reevaluate what's important to them. So I'll just close out with, I was excited that this weekend we talked about a sense of purpose, and I think it was a great exercise that we did yesterday. And I'd like to share with you my sense of purpose. And before I do that, I'll actually quote John McKay, the founder of Whole Foods. He talks about what are the two most important days in a person's life. And most people usually say the first is the day they were born, and the second, maybe it's the birth of a child or getting married or some important event. But he believes that a lot of people will actually never experience the second most important day of their life. and that's the day that people discover their sense of purpose. So, my sense of purpose, I believe that I was given a gift of being an entrepreneur and being born into this country in a place of a country of economic wealth. And my purpose is to use that gift to serve humanity. That's what I'm focused on today. And also to try to be an example in a world right now where there aren't a lot of examples of people that are operating at a higher level, which is what I'm aiming to do, that also care about humanity. So I'd like to also pose some questions to everybody. And the first is, I invite you all, and I'm doing this only as a means of sharing what I've learned through all my research on this. So please take it that way. But I invite everyone to ask themselves the following 4 questions. The first is, do you enjoy your work? The second is your work something that you believe is capitalizing on what you're uniquely good at? The third is, do you have a sense of purpose? Do you feel that on others? And I ask all of that in the context of what I've learned, both through my own experience, but also in seeing all of these, people who are, many would think are phenomenally successful, but are actually spiritually very poor. And I'll close, there's a song I heard recently, just randomly came up on Pandora by a group called Wookiefoot. And there's a line in the song, and it says, "Some people are so damn poor, all they have is their money." Thank you.